great, give me a pill, send me home. He says, it's not that easy. You have a mass on your brain and it needs to be surgically removed.
We're all so close to death.
I stood up and I had this paper in front of my face and I was shaking so bad I could not read it.
But there is a different energy and perspective about you.
I was recently told that I have another tumor.
Thinking or feeling that you're going to lose a parent. You know, That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot on the soul.
It absolutely changed everything in me.
Spirituality and capitalism belong together. Those thoughts, those feelings, that comes from something bigger than I am. And together I believe we can all grow. That's how we're going to change the world. That's how we're going to change the planet.
All right, well, welcome out to the studio. Today I am joined by Terry Guthrie. He is a longtime friend and someone that really helped raise me. So Terry Guthrie isn't just someone random to our studio today. He's actually my uncle, and I'm really grateful to have you out here.
Well, thank you for having me out.
Absolutely. So this interview, they're always very unique in the conversations that we have. But the reason I wanted to have you out here is because some of the things that you're currently facing, and they're things that I think that when most people are faced with those experiences between life and death, there's a lot of things that start to happen within our own souls, within our own bodies, within our own thoughts of awareness of who we are, what we've created in this world, and what we are committed to leave in this world. Mm-hmm. And so before we jump into that, tell me a little bit about, some of your fondest childhood memories.
Well, grew up in Roy. My grandparents lived in Ogden. We spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house, because my mom got remarried. And to be truthful, to me, that wasn't good. I didn't get along well with my stepdad at all, So I spent a lot of time with grandma and grandpa, But we'd go, if I had a bad day, I'd ask grandma and grandpa if I could come stay with them for a night or something, and they were always glad to accommodate me and have me there with them and calm my nerves or whatever it was they had to do for me.
Mm. So would you say your fondest memories were of your grandparents?
Yeah, I really would, They just made sure I had what I needed. They made sure that I was loved to begin with, more than anything. They showered me with their love all the time, I still have memories of my mom and my stepdad and everybody else because I didn't meet my real dad until I was in my 30s, when I finally met my real dad, and it's amazing that you can be, or not be with somebody. And then when you meet him, it's like, guys, we're alike. Him and I were just so much alike. It was ridiculous.
Oh, that's got to be an interesting experience, like not knowing anybody your whole life.
Yeah.
And in your 30s, meeting your father and to realize that you're so much alike.
Yeah. And it really is bizarre because, as we were talking and meeting and, getting together here and there, little things come out, and I'm thinking, God, I do that, or my wife would say, that's just like you. I'm like, yeah, I think it is. And it's amazing that you can pick up them traits, not even being around somebody.
Mm. What would you say? So here's one of the things that I really admire about you, because I was thinking about today as we were going to have this interview and we were going to start to talk and sit down. And that is when I was younger, you worked for, when I'm saying younger, I was like 6, 7, 8 years old. Mm-hmm. You worked for, I believe, Hercules, right? And you what was your job title over there?
It was a material handler. So I was actually out on the floor, supplying the line with chemicals or material or whatever else they needed, not realizing that, I was getting these chemicals in my body. I really didn't.
Never thought about that.
I mean, it was a good job, and as long as it was Hercules, it was great. Then it went to ATK. It was still okay, but then they started changing management to where I couldn't, it just wasn't my thing anymore,
But what did happen during that period of time, I remember that when I was about 7 or 8, like I said, I remember you had like, when you walk into a movie set and they have the little, take 2, take 3, the little snapper. I can't think what it's called. But you had one of those with your name on it.
I don't know if it has my name on it. I still have it, though.
Oh, you still have it?
Yeah, I still have it. I've collected all my stuff like that.
And what was cool about it that inspired me to be like, I'm like, what are you doing? And you told me, I'm taking acting classes.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember your daughter being like, wow, my dad's an actor. And so here you are in your 30s and you decide to start pursuing acting. What was the motivation behind that? What inspired you? Is this something you always wanted to do when you were a kid? Like, how did this even happen?
Well, when I was a kid, obviously, like I didn't have a great life. I wanted something else. So I always kind of looked around, but I was always shy, always backwards, afraid of my own shadow is essentially what it was, to put me on camera at that point was like, is not going to happen at all, And so I went the other route, working and whatnot. And then I met a gentleman at work whose daughter was doing commercials. And I just kind of lightly spouted out that that's fun. I'd like to do that, Well, next thing I know, he's giving me a name and a number and sending me down here to Salt Lake to talk to an agent, So I came down and, it took me a while to even get up the courage to come down here, Finally came down and sat and talked with the agent. And we talked for quite a while. She finally says, you really need acting lessons. If you want to go this route, you need acting lessons, and I can get them for you. They're going to cost this much, blah, 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 But it'll help you not only with your acting, but your everyday life. And so it took me months, to get the money, just to get the courage to say, okay, let's try it. Well, finally, I finally called them up. Says, okay, I want to try this, and so we went into their studio, and there were only 3 actors in there, and then the instructor, And I remember that she picked on me first. I don't know why, but she picked on me first. She handed me a paper, and we call it a side, but it's a 1-page script, And she said, stand up and read it. I stood up. And I had this paper in front of my face, and I was shaking so bad I could not read it. She finally said, Terry, please, why don't you just sit down and read it? So I did. I sat down, but that paper was still right in my face. And I was shaking, and I read it. And in 3 months, 3 months' time, she took us from that to where we did a scene on camera, without the papers or anything else, And to me, it was great. Something I'd never done before, But if I look back on it now, I thought that really wasn't very good. It was kind of lousy, but that's how you learn. You do stuff and it's not great. You learn from it. During that time, I did my first play. One of the actresses that was in the class said, "Hey, we need somebody. Do you want to try it?" Here again, I'm back into my fears, but I went out anyway. Talked to the director, and she said, "You're in." Like without even a second thought, "You're in." I'm like, okay, I'm not very good, And everybody else in the show had done something, some kind of stage, some kind of television, some kind of something, So they were all experienced, and then there's me, and we started going. And our first show, we were going along great, And all of a sudden, one of the main actors jumped 3 or 4 pages ahead in the script, and I knew it. And I didn't know what to do. I was starting to panic. So I ad-libbed. I never ad-libbed in my life, but I ad-libbed and brought him back. And so we got back to where we were supposed to go, and then kept going. And we got up to where he, made the mistake, and I had to ad-lib again to make it sound different, And fortunately, we got through that okay. And afterwards, he came up and he says, I don't know if I could have done that. So I didn't know what to do. I was scared.
That's what would you say from that? Because I didn't know that story, and I appreciate you sharing that. From that, you went on to do movies and plays and all kinds of things. Our family growing up, primarily blue collar workers, for the most part,
Yeah,
really.
for the most part, I was too.
What was, because I don't know, I was just thinking about this. What was when you told people, your wife, my aunt, and when you told the rest of your family and uncles and everybody around you that you want to be an actor, like what was their response to that?
Believe it or not, it's a lot of negative, you know.
I would think so.
It's like, well, you can't be an actor. They don't make enough money. They don't do this. They don't do that, I says, well, I still want to try. I'm not going to quit my job to go do this. I'm still going to work around it somehow. So I started more acting lessons at that time, studying and the acting lessons are what really helped me out later on. Went through a number of different classes, and they just, as each class brings out confidence in you, and you learn things, you learn what you're doing right or wrong, but it was still kind of a negative, connotation, in the family. It's like, well, you shouldn't do this. You can't do this. You can't afford to do this. But I did it anyway, time off, vacation times, whatever it took, I did it.
So you go from this young man that has no confidence, basically, is super shy, to ad-libbing, to doing plays, to doing things on your own terms. What level of confidence did that give you?
That actually has raised my confidence level, like 100%, because like I say, when I first started, I was so shy, I couldn't even look at my own shadow without turning red and, just clamming up and that. And I went from there to where I was starring on stage, big plays, starring on television, doing shows and all kinds of stuff, and doing it with confidence. I know I'm not the best actor in the world, but that's not the point. The point is I'm doing what I want to do now, and I'm learning from each and every episode that I do. I learn something new.
Yeah, you've done a lot of acting. I've seen, as time has gone on, you've been on many commercials. I've seen your face on buses and, all kinds of fun things. And that's been really exciting. But when you think about like your grandkids and you think about the people that are looking at you and they've seen the things you've done and being an actor, like what would be the advice that you would give to them?
Not to let people put you down. If you have an idea or a dream, pursue it, go for it, it might end up not being what you want to do. I've seen plenty of that, of people coming onto a TV set or a movie set or something and thinking they're going to be big stars, and then they find out what it really takes to be on a TV set or a movie set or even on stage. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah, it does.
And to get to, so they come up there and they think, I don't want to do this, And that's where that line is, They're here, they're going to do it, and all of a sudden they're like, I don't want to do this anymore, Whereas me, it was like I hit that line, and I'm like, I'm going over the other way. I'm moving forward because I really like this. Granted, you spend days on a set and doing a lot of nothing, or just sitting while other actors are doing their thing. Because even as a main actor, you still have to be part of the set, and in order for other people to do their things,
Right.
And so you spend a lot of time sitting and watching and learning. That was the biggest thing. If you want to do something, watch and learn.
I love that. Yeah, it's as you're talking about this, I'm reflecting back a little bit to my youth with you. You're always a very how do I want to say this? Quiet, non-violent. I don't remember you raising your voice a whole lot. Just always kind of just didn't say a lot. But when you said something, people listened because you didn't say a lot. And I remember growing up and working on pursuing my dreams and goals. And you definitely never put me down by any means. And I also recognize like how ugly it looks to make the sausage. Like on the outside, people trying to do their thing and they're fumbling around. And I think I went through 7 million different types of music and styles and trying to find myself for many, many years. And it takes a long time. It takes learning, as you said. It takes growth to get to where we want to be as we continue to grow as men,
And I'm still not where I want to be, where I would like to be.
Same.
I don't know if I'll ever make it now, because of the things that have happened in the last year, But you keep thinking, I'm going to get this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then something in your life stops you.
Let's shift gears a little bit because you just brought that up. So about a year and a half ago, roughly, right?
Yeah,
about a year?
A little over a year ago.
A little over a year ago. You started experiencing just some things going on your body that was not right.
Yeah. It was mostly my focus. The driving wasn't that good, all of a sudden. And I had people on me all the time. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? I'm like, I'm fine, And then I went with my daughter to play bingo all the time up on base, and she thought I was under a lot of stress. So she came and got me and took me up there. And the whole time I'm up there, she's texting her mom, saying things. I don't know what they were saying, but, she was texting her mom. Finally, she turned to me. She goes, Dad, I think we need to go to the hospital. Like, no, we're not going to the hospital. We're here to play bingo. I'm playing bingo, whether you like it or not, So we started playing, and I had these blotters that you put on the numbers, and I'd go to put the blotter on the number, and my daughter grabbed my hand and move it way over. Like, what are you doing? The number's over here. No, it's over there, Well, we got about halfway through, and I was so tired I couldn't do it anymore, So she took over, and I says, just play it, And we got done and got in the car, and she goes, Dad, we're going to the hospital. I was like, why? I'm fine. I just need some sleep, or something. But they took me up there anyway, and we spent the rest of the day in the hospital. They ran these tests, and my doctor had already ordered all these tests. They were a couple of months away, And anyway, so they took me up there. They ran me through CT scans and MRIs and the whole 9 yards, And then my wife came in and told the doctor, she goes, I want you to look for dementia because he's acting like he's got dementia. Like, I know people that have dementia. I don't have it. I'm sorry. That's not me, Well, finally, after, I don't know how many, it seemed like many hours, the doctors finally come in. And he says, well, great, you got good news here. You don't have dementia. I was like, great, give me a pill, send me home. He says, it's not that easy. You have a mass on your brain, and it needs to be surgically removed. Well, all of a sudden, gears change. All of a sudden, I know what a mass on your brain means. It means cancer, plain and simple. You can't hide that from me.
Because your mom had passed away from it, correct?
Yes, my mom passed away from brain cancer. And believe it or not, it's not hereditary. It's not contagious. It's not anything. I can't give it to you. You can't give it to me.
Sure.
That's all there is to it,
Yeah.
But within, I think that was a Sunday, and by Friday I was in the hospital having surgery. I didn't have time to think about it. I didn't have time to worry about it. I was just there, and we were trying to get some other things together just in case, because there's, in this kind of situation, there's always an in case. What happens if you don't make it? Well, you're on your own. Sorry, go away.
Yeah.
And so they took me in, and to be truthful, I was scared to death. I was totally petrified.
I would be too.
Well, they took me in, and and then of course put me out, and I made some stipulations of, before you do this, you got to do this, and I didn't want tubes going up my face, my nose, or anything else unless I'm out. Don't do it, And so they took me in and did all that stuff when I was under. And then when I finally came out, I was in a hospital bed, and they told the family, they said, look, he's probably not going to walk or talk. This is a very dangerous operation. I finally came out of surgery, and I'm in bed, and the family's around me, and I finally wake up, and I was having some pain down in my groin area, and it was something bad, and I started swearing. I mean, words that I usually don't use. It was coming out of my mouth, so they knew I could talk, And finally, they got somebody in there, and they had placed my catheter wrong, and it was plugged up, and it was, it was not good, because I kept saying, there's something wrong. You got to look at it. No, you're fine. No, look at it, Well, finally, they fixed that. And then they sent the therapist in. There was an occupational therapist and a physical therapist. They sent them in to, to see if I could walk, And they had me sitting up in bed. And they brought a walker in and all that. And of course, I had all these tubes running out of me. And the nurse says, well, do you want to try and walk? I was almost out of that bed before she got to me. I wanted to get out of that bed so bad. I was determined to. And I got up, and they grabbed me, of course, and got me in the walker. And I walked out the hallway. And what it was is I just wanted to see life besides in my little, corner of the world. I wanted to see life. And I walked out to the hallway. I looked up and down. I said, okay, that's enough. They, in the meantime, I guess they're changing. I don't know what they're doing, but they got me into bed, and I felt better. I just felt 100% better knowing that I could see life, and I knew that I was still there.
When you were going through the operation, do you remember any of it? Like besides, so was it like was it like being in a dream? Was it?
Yeah, it was just, I was asleep. Yeah. Just plain asleep. I don't remember any of it. I don't remember anything they did. I did find out a lot later what they did, but at that point, no, I was just there. Having a good nap. That's what it turned out to be.
Right.
Because later on, I found out that they had screwed my head down. So I had little spots on my head where they had put a screw in, to hold my head perfectly still while they're doing this.
Wow.
Because if they hit a certain nerve or something during that time,
Yep.
you could jump,
I'm sure.
And they don't want you jumping when they're in there with a knife doing things,
Of course not.
And so, they did that, and they bandaged me up and took everything out, except the tubes of my arms, and got me into bed. And so they were happy that I woke up and was talking that day. And that's the biggest thing. They were just, thrilled. And then when I decided I wanted to get up, of course, they had a lot of people in the room when this was going to happen, but I was getting up and I was going. And I think everybody was absolutely amazed that I could do that, but that's determination. To me, that's determination,
Yeah, of course.
It's
Which goes
not
back to that level of newfound confidence. When you do something difficult, which you did with acting, you put yourself in a difficult situation, a place that nobody you know never done it before. People are telling you can't do something, and for some reason inside of you, you're saying, "Watch me, I'm going to," because you found joy in what you were doing. One of the things I noticed, growing up with the two of us, and that was your energy was always a very, it was somewhat funny, but it was also very strong and very serious. And it seemed to be like there was just, you were holding, the easiest way to say for me is you were holding a lot of pain. Like internally, there was a lot of pain. And I noticed when I came to your 70th birthday last year that your energy felt to me completely different.
It's changed.
It really has changed.
Has.
That's really what I want to talk about.
And it has changed because before it was like, growing up in the family situation I did, I held things back, and I wouldn't show emotions. I didn't want nobody to know how I felt, the whole 9 yards, And then this new surgery came up, and like I said, it changed everything. It absolutely changed everything in me, and my strengths and my thoughts and everything else, because here before I'm striving to be an actor. I'm going to push, I'm going to retire. I'm going to push forward, with that. And all of a sudden I'm flat on my back in the hospital bed, with bandages on my head, because they just operated, and it changed my thought process a lot, on what I'm thinking, what I'm doing. How important is my acting to just living, and living became more priority, I guess, than anything. So, so I pushed forward with just living. I haven't done any acting per se. This is probably the closest thing I've done in acting in over a year right now, and it just, to be truthful, it feels good. It feels really good to be here talking to somebody about this,
Yeah.
But it's no longer priority. Living is priority right now, and I was recently told that I have another tumor in my brain. I will be going in about a week for another brain surgery. And I'll be truthful, it's scary. It's dang scary, So I try and push that out of my thought process. I don't want to be scared,
I mean, if I was in your shoes, I would be scared too.
Yeah.
Like, and and for me too, I have my own fears for you, right? I have my own fears for, the family. I mean, you've taken in, Aunt Debbie's, brother and sister, which they're, they've got, they're handicapped.
They're a
They've
challenge,
got, yeah. They've got their own challenges, or they're grown adults, but one can't see, and then the other one can't talk, and their ages are much younger than mentally than what they are physically.
Oh yeah, because her sister's 1 year younger than I am. Her brother's like 5 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So they're full grown older adults.
Correct.
Really
And so you guys have been taking care of them, which obviously I appreciate that, because growing up was Uncle Pat and Aunt Mary, and they were the best. But facing that, going through surgery, right? Like, what makes you? I talked to Aunt Debbie a couple days ago, and she goes, "I don't know if I would do it. I don't know if I just wouldn't just try to live out the rest, because there is dangers in going through this procedure you're going to go through." And she said, "I don't know if I would do it." What makes you decide to do that?
I'm not ready to die, plain and simple. I'm just not ready to give up on life. I feel like I have more life to live.
I agree.
A year ago when this first hit, I think, I've never been a religious person ever. I've gone to church. I've done things with the church people, but I've never gone through baptism. I've never done this. Well,
I've never seen you do any of that stuff.
All of a sudden, church became very important to me, And so my second daughter, was going to a non-denominational church, and we'd been there a couple of times with them, and they did some great stuff, Well, when this hit, that was one of the first stops we made, was at the church office to talk to the pastor, and he's an assistant pastor, and him and I became fast friends, very fast friends, And we talked, and he prayed, and we did all kinds of things. I felt things I had never felt before, when he would pray with me, to me or for me or whatever,
What would you feel?
And just a warmth, kind of a nice warmth inside of me, and his confidence was like, you're gonna live through this. I don't care. You're going to make it, And so he was just a very confident person with me, And so when I did wake up from the surgery and I'm talking and walking, and I'm like, he knows what he's talking about, So,
yeah, your family's all rallied. The family's all rallied around you. I've watched that. I've watched all of a sudden from you being a man of, I don't remember, of any kind of faith, really. Your wife for sure, absolutely. But to go from that to your whole entire family rallying around you. I've seen posts of you guys going to church and a lot of that. And it's been really beautiful to see. When you first got diagnosed, did you notice people coming out of the woodwork to support you?
Yeah. When it started getting out in the family, there were a lot of people coming out. All of a sudden, a lot of that's waned.
Of course.
It's gone on its own way right now. But they're still there. You know, they just haven't come out and sat with me like I thought they would.
Right.
I guess I have different thoughts of what people should treat people like me.
Well, tell me about that.
You always think, well, okay, I've got this deadly disease. Wouldn't you want to go see me? Wouldn't you not want to talk to me? And they did. They would come out and talk to me and sit in the hospital bed, but then all of a sudden it's gone. They're just, I'm home. They're not showing up, or it's a struggle to get them there, we invite people to our house just to have somebody to come,
Yeah.
It's like, why don't you just come sit and have dinner with us or something, And I've had a couple of people make comments that just it kind of blew me away, And these are from people I know really, really well, And one of them was a brother-in-law, and he just says, well, I want to remember you like you were. I'm like, okay, well, why am I different? I know my attitude's changed. There's some change, but why am I different, And I finally got him around, He still doesn't come around because he never did anyway.
Sure. Well, I think it's also, people get the opportunity to see you and meet with you. You have just you've always had the same laughter that listen to you laugh, I'm like, oh, it's the same thing. But there is a different energy and perspective about you. And I wonder if it's because before you were pushing, and even just personally, I talked to Aunt Debbie and I said, how has your guys' relationship changed since Uncle Terry had this diagnosis? And she says it is immensely different. Yeah. She says it's so, how has that changed for you? And like, why has it changed? And how do you view things differently with your guys' relationship?
Well, a lot of it's, I think, I'm more focused on me living, not everybody else in the world. I'm focused on me. What have I got to do? I can't worry about you. I'm the one with the disease. I can't worry about you right now. You've got to be strong enough to be yourself, and so, that's the biggest thing is I'm more self-focused, I guess, more than anything, more than any time in my life, I'm more self-focused than I ever have been in my life.
Does that feel, and so you think by you being self-focused, it's changed your relationship with your wife?
Oh, by all means. It's changed my relationship with everybody, I've had some people come out still and sit with me and talk to me, but for the most part, they don't, it's just, it amazes me that you'd think, okay, I've got somebody hero in my family that's got sick. He might die any minute,
Yeah.
But maybe we should go see him, but then, I don't want to do that.
But the reality is we might all just die in any moment.
Yeah, we could, a bomb could drop right on us.
No, but I'm saying 2016, I woke up one morning with blood clots in my lungs.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows what could have happened from that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dad has had some pretty, some pretty challenging things in the hospitals and this and that and some of the stuff that's going on with him and, our families and, grandma. And I think we're all very close. That's the one thing that's interesting to me about this is that we're all so close to death.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't want to say that death is on our door and it's coming towards us. We want to avoid that. We're like, no, we're not gonna die. There's no way that's gonna happen. We're only going to live. And so that means we have unlimited amounts of time. But I also think that's the beauty about death. And the beauty about death is that it lets us see and reflect on our life. It also lets us see and reflect on the fact that tomorrow morning, I may not wake up. You may not wake up.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And then, yes, I know that right now you have, a terminal disease, and that is what's happening and what has occurred. However, you've already shown from, statistically that you've been around a year longer than I think of what a lot of people thought. And I think that I'm just as close to death as you are in the weirdest way possible.
And you are, people really are that close. But, as you're growing up and living your life, that's pushed out.
Correct.
In your mind. It's like, I don't want to think about it. I'm not going to think about it. Then something happens in your life, like, with me or your dad or, and all of a sudden it's right there.
It's right there.
In your face, And you might not wake up tomorrow,
So you think that your relationship has changed with Aunt Debbie simply because you're focusing on yourself?
Yeah, I really do. It's changed with my kids. It's changed with everybody, I've had a lot of people make comment to that. I was like, you're just something different about you. Well, yeah, I've been really close to death. In fact, I've been on that doorstep, as everybody wants to put it. I've been knocking on that door.
Yeah.
And I have backed off and come out of it.
Do you feel like even though that you have been going through these challenges and you have, your energy's not the same and, you went through this operation and right now you do have these, tumors, would you say you're happier though than what you were before? Even though that you're going through these challenges right now?
I wouldn't necessarily say happier, because it's changed my life. There's things I can't do right now. I haven't driven for over a year right now because I'm afraid to. I'm sure I could, but it's a fear thing, because when this all first started too, we had gotten in a wreck, and that kind of started. It was like within a week or two after that everything else happened,
Oh, because of your
it happened really fast. Excuse me, and it made me think: was that my fault? Fortunately, I had witnesses that knew it wasn't.
Right.
They knew I was in the right. But it still makes you go back and think maybe I did something wrong.
But I guess what I'm saying to you is, would you say that your relationships? Because this is why I ask. Is I know right now not being able to do certain things is not enjoyable. And I know that facing death is something that it's an intense moment in time. It's a lot of internal work. It's a lot of reflection, a lot of wanting more time. But what I'm saying is with your relationships getting better though, do you think because of that, your relationships have gotten better?
In a sense, yes.
That's why I was asking it. Not from any other perspective than that.
Yeah, I would say my relationships are better, especially with my children, because you raise your kids to be independent, and they had become very independent. I didn't see a lot of them. Now I see a lot of them, especially my son, my son has had his own challenges with girlfriends and whatnot, I see him a lot, it's like 3 or 4 times a week he's at the house, and that's fine. I love it,
Yeah.
The other kids, they have their jobs and whatnot they still have to do.
Yeah.
And so, they don't come around quite as often, but they still come around a lot more than they ever had before.
Yeah, I know that when the diagnosis first came across, I talked to your son a lot, and I heard his emotions and his feelings and what he was going through and what he was processing through, and I can tell you he has an immense amount of love for you. And I think the idea of all of a sudden, one of the hardest things I think for anybody is the thought process of thinking or feeling that you're going to lose a parent. That's a lot.
Yeah,
that's a lot on the soul.
And you get the same thought process, wouldn't you?
Sure.
Am I going to wake up tomorrow? Am I going to be different tomorrow? Am I going to walk? Am I going to talk? Am I going to, what am I going to do after this is all over? And of course, when you first get to that surgery and you're elated because you've lived and you walked and you talked, you're recovering. And then something else happens, people start noticing you slowed down a little bit. I'm 70 years old. Come on. I'm going to slow down a little bit at 70 years old.
Yeah, I was going to say, you definitely, it makes sense.
And, so I have slowed down a bit, but other people worry about that. It's like, well, come on, you got to look at my life, I'm 70. Yeah, I'm going to slow down. I'm going to step back a little bit, I'm not going to be a 30 or 40-year-old that I used to be,
Right.
So So yeah, things just have kind of put the brakes on just a little bit. So.
Right. So going back to church, going back to this preacher that you've been working with and going through, since having this new information, like how is your role in spirituality and in connecting with God and all that? How's that changed in your life?
Actually, it's still a work in process, to be truthful. Because like when you grow
I
up
love that.
all your life, you haven't had it, In fact, I grew up in a non-religious, anti-religious home, And so now all of a sudden I'm looking for something else, like I did when I was acting. When I started acting, I was looking for something, when I found it. Well, now I'm looking for something else. I'm looking for life, plain and simple. And there are people in this world that can give you that life. They help you with that life. And that's what going to church has done for me. It hasn't made me religious, it hasn't changed me that much, but I listen to what they say now, because this church, when they give a lesson, it's cool. It's more like a history lesson. At this point in time, this happened, 1,000 years later, what they said here is happening, and you're like, God, I can't believe it. I can't believe that. And that's just how they teach, They don't teach. They teach out of the Bible. They don't teach out of a certain book. They don't teach out of anything else but the Bible. And the guy that runs the church himself, he's got a doctorate in religion. And he's just an immensely warm person, and he loves sitting and talking to you. And helping you through anything you need help with. And so, yeah, am I more religious? Yeah. Am I super religion? No, I just, but I'm learning, I'm slowly learning.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I've heard this often, and that there's no atheists in a rabbit hole, right? Like when we're facing death, we want to know that there's a maker. We want to know there's something on the other side of all of this. I deeply believe there's something beyond, the realm of consciousness, around the physical. There's something much bigger than myself that's working and orchestrating and always has been.
Yeah, and that's how I kind of have to look at it. You might not ever become religious. That's okay. You follow what you want to follow. Believe in what you want to believe in. If you don't want to believe in God, that's great. That's what you want. But me, it changed with that. I all of a sudden I felt like, I needed something more. And this has helped me. Learning religion and listening to the preachers and having them there and having them become friends has changed me immensely.
Sounds like they've given you a lot of love.
Yeah. And my family's always, not always there. One of my family's always there every Sunday. But the others, they come and go. But they still come out. They still do. They still support me. Might not be right for them, and I've told them that if it's not right for you, don't do it. But for me, this is what I need right now.
I think the message I keep hearing a lot is a lot of people think if we just focus on ourselves, that is a selfish thing. I believe it's actually well beyond that. I think it's self-love, because until I love me, until I work on me, until I, heal myself, until I do those things, then I'm going to bring all of my unhealedness, and even it's always a process, as you said. And I love what you said about the fact of like, you're working on it. I don't think there's anybody that's arrived. I don't think anybody's got this stuff figured out, Uncle Terry. Like nobody has got this. They're like, oh, you know what? This is exactly how it is, and this is how life is, and this is how it works out, and this is it, and that's the end. Nobody has that figured out.
I used to have that belief,
Really?
with some of the big churches, and and of course we live in Utah. LDS is one of the biggest ones. Catholic is another big one, and they talk to you a little differently, and try and make you believe that their group of leaders are who you have to follow, plain and simple. And that always kind of bothered me. It's like, I don't know if I want to follow these people. They have beliefs that aren't me, that just I don't see or hear or anything else, And when this hit, all of a sudden that became reality. I don't want to follow them. I don't like what they say. It doesn't mean I hate them. It doesn't mean I'm against them. But it's just not for me. I want to follow my own path. And I've told a lot of my neighbors that, they keep pushing, well, why don't you come to church? Why don't you do this? So I do go to church, just not your church.
Right. Well, because where you live, it's primarily, LDS
It
Mormons.
is.
Like that is Utah. That's where we're at. So
Yeah.
of course it's going to be part of the local faith, and it makes sense. And I think that I think in them telling you, hey, why don't you come to church? I think it's because they believe in their heart of hearts that their God or their beliefs or those systems are going to be the ones that can also help you as well and heal and move through those things. Would you say that your life has shifted because now you're living with a sense of urgency, the way that you look at each day? Or did you get to the point in time, even though, you hadn't had, you basically, I believe that you thought that this was not going to come back. When I met you, and it's so weird I keep saying that, but I feel like I met a different man when I met you in your 70th birthday. Don't know why, but as I said, it was different. Did you have this feeling that this was not going to come back? And if so, how have you now chosen a different sense of urgency between those 2 points?
Yeah, I did think it was not going to come back. I thought they had gotten because
Me too.
the kind of cancer it is, it's glioblastoma cancer. It's deadly, plain and simple. And they'll tell you you've only got, a few months at the most, Well, when they went and took it out, they called it a non-typical glioblastoma. Usually glioblastoma, you've got the tumor and you got fingers that run out into your brain. Mine didn't have the fingers. It was just a tumor, so they took it out. And the surgeon came in, he said, I got this. It's great, And then the other doctors came and said, they tell you that, but we don't believe that. You're still going to do this therapy. You're still going to do that, And so at this point, I believe they gave me extra time. I really do. But, all of a sudden, this thing has come back, with a vengeance, because in the 3 months, it has come back, and it's come back strong, And so, I am facing another brain surgery. What'll happen, I don't know. I really don't know. But I think I've got enough faith and enough strength in my soul that I can do it.
I agree.
I really do.
I have said since day one, I do believe that most people, when they get diagnosis with anything, they either can choose to allow that to destroy them, which it can, or they can think a different way. They can hold a place of strong belief in that healing. They can hold a strong belief in the positivity. They can see themselves walking. They can see themselves healthy. They can see those things actually occurring and happening, and often they do. There's a power in the placebo. So there's a couple things that, we usually ask here on The Spiritual Capitalist. And the one thing is, as we're starting to wrap this interview up with you, is knowing that you could potentially be on the doorstep of death, right? We know this. When you're no longer here, what is it that you want to be remembered for in your life?
I think I just want to be remembered for loving my kids and for loving my family in general. Not just my kids, but my family in general, everybody around me. I want to know that they are loved. I love them very much, that I fought a valiant battle against a deadly disease, and I did pretty good, I really did. I made the one surgery. I got another one coming up. I feel really good that I'm going to survive this surgery. I really
agree.
do. But the doctors have also told me you'll probably only have a year after this. If you get through this, you only have a year. And I told the doctor, I'll have more than that. You watch. I'm going to find something that will make me live longer,
Absolutely.
And so I'm going to start looking at other types of therapies and what, because, for a long time I had this thing on my head, and it's what it is it would send electricity through your brain, and it's supposed to kill the cancer cells, and I always felt it was working great, because people would say, well, are you going to wear that rest of your life? Yep, I am, Well, all of a sudden this new tumor appears. It's in a different area, and the doctor says, take it off. It's not doing you any good anymore. Just take it off, So
I was wondering, because when you showed up, I was like, wait a minute, where's the little electrical device you put on your head that was, doing the pulsing and helping with that?
yeah, it's been off for about a week and a half, 2 weeks now. I've had it off. So,
Got it.
Trying to get, but probably more like a week, because I still got, it caused sores on my head, and I'm trying to still get out, get over that a little bit,
Well, your attitude is very commendable. I mean, the way that you said that you are a warrior and you are fighting through these things, and you're not going to let something, put you down. So when you come out of the surgery and you've got many more years left in your life, what do you plan on doing with it?
Probably loving more, loving my family more, probably less focus on my acting. I'll still do it. Trust me, I'm not going to stop doing that. But trying to get my kids and grandkids up to believing in I'd like them to believe just like I do. I know that's not a reality. So I want them to believe what they believe best. And I think this has actually changed all of them a lot. My daughters come to church all the time, with me. My son, he's still not, he's having his own struggle. So he's not there yet, I'm sure he'll find something eventually, after he gets through these girlfriends that keep coming into his life and leaving in the middle of a, strong relationship, and all of a sudden he's brokenhearted again,
Yeah.
and mom and dad are there. Mom and dad's always been there, and he finally realizes that, if something happens here, go to mom and dad. They'll help you.
Yeah. So with loving more, I think that's such a beautiful message to just love more. I mean, there's no more than we can do is just to love. Is there anything that you would like to say to your kids and grandkids that, when they see this, that there's something that you would like to talk to them about?
Yeah, I think the strongest thing is stay close. My family kind of drifted, miles apart in essence. Even though they live kind of close. I've got one brother I haven't talked to over a year. He hasn't called me. And, my other brother, I talk to him once in a while. And my oldest brother, he was killed, so he's obviously gone now. But once maybe I think I've seen my cousins once. During this year. I think I've seen you and your family a lot more than I'd seen anything of my own family, but stay close, stay connected. Don't let this, tear us apart. I want my family to be there for each other,
I think it's so important. I remember before we started like talking on camera is that when we were younger, we used to have the biggest, most incredible Thanksgiving with Grandma Locke that I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah.
They were so magical.
Yeah, they were.
Every time I think about it, I'm like, and what you said is a message that I think is so important for all of us. And that is to stay close because we lost that. Our families got too big. Excuses got involved. I mean, I've had my own excuses many times with family, of course. And because you're living your own life and you're doing your own thing and you got your own kids or whatever it is, but the families start to kind of drift apart. And so it takes a lot like what my mom and dad always say about relationships and their relationship. It takes work. It takes commitment. It takes dedication. This stuff doesn't just magically happen. And in order to be able to build those bonds deep, though, we have to do that because it's often said that our friendships and our family, the reason that we lose track of them is because before we were doing things with them. And so we'd say, oh, remember that time we experienced this, like Thanksgiving, we're just talking about that, or your 70th birthday or whatever it is. But the minute that we stop doing things together, what ends up happening is we start talking about the fact of I'm doing this thing, I'm experiencing this, I'm experiencing that. We go back and talk about the good old days. You tell me what you're experiencing. Eventually, people do this because there's no longer the bond of that's holding them together, whether it's visiting, dinners, activities, games, you name it. We lose that.
Yeah.
So
you lose it and you start, like say, you start doing it with your, as you've gotten older, you've done it with more with your family, not mine,
Of course.
So you were all doing things separately though. Whereas before we were all one big family.
I know we were.
Grandma was there, everybody was there, and then when grandma died, I think it went on for a couple more years, but
Not
then
very long after that.
very long after that.
No.
And then we finally started, we're going to do it our own thing. We're going to have our Thanksgiving here. We're going to have our Christmas here,
Absolutely.
And I think that's natural. I really do.
Well, I appreciate everything. I appreciate the way that you've shown up. I absolutely appreciate the daughter that you've raised, one of my best friends, and since we were kids, inseparable. We've definitely separated our own ways as well, right? But some of my fondest memories is in the old house, is just growing up, and with you and Aunt Debbie, it's been such a beautiful journey. And I'm glad we get to share this. I know you're going into surgery, but I know that we will share another year and another year after that. So, and
I hope to do this again with you because I've enjoyed it thoroughly.
Good, man. Good. Well, I appreciate you coming out here. And you know, the guests and the people that are watching in on the show, I would just ask that whatever it is that you believe in, however it is that you pray, however it is that you send your love or your messaging of love and healing, that you are able to send it to my uncle, because we can all use more love and we can all use more prayers.
We can.
All right, man. Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you.
All right.